a seat to the bar and join us for another episode of McAnally's Pubcast, a podcast exploring the fun and fantastical mind of Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files series. Hosts Tansenn, Jess, and Maggie bring you another round of literary analysis on this immense, immersive, and colorful environment inhabited by Harry Dresden, the world's only licensed private investigator and professional wizard. Join an active and engaged community of new and die-hard dedicated fans focused on the fabulous themes, theories, characters, context, lore, and more. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk. Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 10.3, We're covering the novel Death Masks. My name is Tansenn, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess. Well, she did say what she was going to do.
We hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. We love you all. We will be back next week as well.
Yay!
Thank you to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us to do what we do. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at www.patreon.com/freeflowrambling.
Chapter 4. After a warm reintroduction to Susan, she warns Harry about the impending threat of Ortega and the opposing opinions in the Red Court for peace with the White Council. The pair are interrupted by the plain and blasé Martin, who takes Susan elsewhere. Before Harry can get some sleep, Murphy calls for an unofficial case involving a dead body.
I've heard of running into an old plane, but this is ridiculous. So yeah, that was where we left up with him casting his blasting rod over Susan.
Susan Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Vampire Slayer.
He is quite stunned.
Dun, dun, dun. He's a little taken aback. Yeah. His brain locks up for a whole 10 seconds. Sure, it's a lot long. Come on, Harry.
He just snapped her out of it, or she snaps him out of it.
Yeah, so yeah, he goes through the whole, I can smell her and see her, and oh my god, and dark eyes, and she's got a little cut on her lip, and Susan gets a little freaked out, like, Harry, you're scaring me. You're kind of standing over me, staring with a giant blasting rod, all glowy. And he's like, right, hey, what the hell? Just drop by to say hey. So yeah, he figures out, he's like, what the hell was that? And she's like, ugh, Red Court, but I didn't get to like see his face or whatever. And he's like, you just ran off a Red Court vampire on your own. You did that.
I like her. I've been working out. Cheeky. It's good she can have a sense of humor about it all.
Right. And, I'm sure it helps Harry, too, because this is, again, his, like, oh, it's probably Susan then, like, our banter, our thing, our... So he kind of does his little spidey sense thingy and doesn't sense anybody else around. But he's like, I probably shouldn't hang around. So she immediately is like, sure, shall we take this inside? And he's like, yeah, oh.
Yeah, he figures out to test hers.
Maybe, maybe not. Like, yes, inside is good, but... Do I want?
Because it might not even be her. It could be a shapeshifter. It could be any number of things.
Right. And if she's completely turned, then whatever, right? So he does. He kind of, he's a little apologetic, sort of. He's like, yeah, that's probably better, but I'm not going to invite you in. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, she is kind of, like, fair.
Yeah, she says it makes sense, like...
So we get the little update on his place again or whatever, and it's kind of like she kind of walks a step sort of like beside and behind coming in, right? Which is, again, her way of just being like, I'm not crowding you, I'm staying where you can see me so you don't have to like turn your back on me or whatever, right? And then, he mentions his wards and things like that, so he like goes in and disables them because he's like, so they wouldn't do anything. And he's like, if it's the real Susan, she would be fine because they're not set up to hurt, mortals or anything like that. It's just big, bad, supernatural nasties. And he's like, at least the threshold wouldn't hurt her. He's like, getting paranoid suspicion from her ex-boyfriend might do its own kind of damage. Right? So he's like, I know this is kind of maybe shitty, but, you know, but she takes it well. And I mean, again, Susan being Susan, seeing as she isn't a big, scary, nasty dad, she's like, I do get it. And he, you know, again, he says the point here, you know, he's like, better safe than exsanguinated, you know, and he's like, yeah, if it really, you know, if it was some shapeshifter or some trick or something, he's like, Susan probably would not be like, my God, why didn't you just test them, you know, so.
One aspect of that as well, too, is that, at least in the original Dracula, once you invite them into your home once, it's not every time they leave and go. You only have to invite them in once and then come and go forever after that, right?
Exactly. So, which is why Buffy and them had to invent a de-invitation spell.
So, part of the problem, too, would be that, like, even if this is Susan not turned, if he does invite her in now, and then she later turns, she could potentially have that blanket invitation.
I disagree. I don't think... You said
She's not monster yet?
She's not monster yet.
But she is on the halfway point.
She's at the halfway, but that's it. He doesn't invite her, and she still comes in no problem. Because
sure,
she's still mortal. She's just got a little bit. So, yeah, I don't think... Because... The whole point is that not inviting her in, she couldn't come in, but she came in. So either, again, you lose all of your power coming in, or my understanding, more so straight up with the vampires, is that she would not have been able to cross that barrier at all. She still would have been stuck on the doorstep. So I think that point, I'm going to disagree just on that point, that, yeah, I think it's fine until she does. So yeah, if he had...
Fully turned to the dark side.
Yeah. So, again, the invitation would only have been if she's already turned, then he just fucked himself over. But since she isn't, okay, you can still come in, and I know you're still mostly mortal, partially mortal, whatever. But other than that, yeah, I agree with the other things. If she was some kind of shapeshifter, then you've just given carte blanche to, like, Paolo Ortega or something.
Well, yes, either way.
Susan disguise, right?
Whether or not it's something with Susan's face, or it's legitimately Susan, but she's...
Yeah.
Turned herself
into a full red. So
right.
Yeah, so that's the whole point of that. So
Susan is freely able to cross the threshold. So being part vampire is okay. It seems it's a
yeah. Let's just say
gray area.
They've started that transformation. They've given her a couple of attributes, but not enough to. Other than like she can't. I mean, whatever. She explains it here a little bit. You know, she's got a little bit of extra super strength, and she's got the narcotic drool, but other than that, you know, she can't change form, she can't do anything else, she can't. Right. So.
Well, and as soon as she comes in, Dresden is like immediately overcome with like these emotions and need, and he takes absolutely no time and surprises her with an embrace and a kiss, which she eagerly returns.
Yeah, reciprocates.
And my dizziness grew. Some kind of coherent thought did a quick flyby of my forebrain. I struggled to take notice of it, but the kiss made it impossible. Lust and need murdered my reason. I just love that phrase. Like,
yeah.
You're kissing a half vampire, and you use the word murdered.
Well, because he says earlier on when he's like, you know, telling us about vampires while he's on stage with Paolo Ortega, right? He's like, vampires have an enormous yuck factor. Their saliva is an addictive narcotic, and I've been exposed to it enough to make me twitch, blah, blah, blah. And ever since I was exposed to it, I've been wondering, when will I get another hit? Like, it's just that addictive that, like, after all this time, he's, like, just always on the fringes of his, like, mind. He's, like, whenever he has a second to think about vampires, he strays over to how fucking awesome it is to kiss them, right? So the second he's got Susan in his apartment, he's like, all right, motherfucker, let's get that fixed. I like Susan and I like vampire saliva.
Perfect. I don't have to become, again, another Buffy reference right off the bat, but in like season 5 or something, season 5 or 6, and her boyfriend Riley ends up going and pretty much mostly like a whole drug metaphor, I think, but he's basically going to like some flop house and letting like vamps like drink from his arm kind of a thing to get that, you know, because he was attacked once or something and now he's, you know, but it's almost like that exactly. He's like, okay, I know it's terrible, I know it's awful, I know it's a really good way to end up dead, but you know, he's like, I really want, so yeah, instead of having to go and find some like random vampire horror or whatever, he's like, perfect, Susan's here. But yeah, he doesn't even let her like turn around. Like she comes in and she turns around to like close and lock the door, and she's like, "So good enough," and he's like instantly right there behind her, like pressing her up against the door, and he's like it takes him like that long to make the decision. Like she walked in the door, boom, we're good to go, and he's like, "Oh my God, Susan's back," but yeah, as you say, she pretty there's maybe like a second of hesitation or something like that. I think she maybe takes a moment, but basically, yeah, she's right in there too, and like gladly returns the kiss and starts basically crawling up him and everything like that until it starts getting to that point where, yeah, he's like just fully losing himself, both in the metaphorical emotion and, like you say, the narcotic drool.
Well, they didn't break up because they fell out of love or lust, so.
Exactly. And Mr. to the rescue. Right. Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if Mr. hadn't have, like, interrupted, if, like, things would have just progressed, like, for both of them.
Oh, it seems like they're well on their way to progressing. They both get caught up in the moment. That's, exactly, I think, the whole point that, why we've got Mr. Interrupting here, because you're like, oh, this is going to go sideways real fast. For one way or the other, whether it
the whole reason why she left in the first place is because she couldn't control herself around him.
She didn't want to, exactly, right? And, so he interrupts and causes that moment of, and that's the thing, he's even like, oh, crap, he's like, you know what I need? I need a drink, you want a beer? And she's like, last thing I need right now is probably to lower my inhibition, so let's not. Because that's the whole thing, right, is that losing control for her is not just getting carried away in a passionate moment. It's like losing control for her very literally means losing control, and, letting her emotions run wild could most likely end up killing Harry. Right, it's not just a bad choice of like, oops, I got together with my ex,
And it's one thing to eat a random person, but to eat your ex-boyfriend.
Well, exactly, right? And again, it's cute Harry quip, right? But she's like, oh my God, she's like, if I did something like that, like if I hurt you like that, she's like, or worse, she's like, it would kill me. And he's like, more to the point, it would probably kill me, and it's like, yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, they've obviously both missed each other.
That's a fun universe to explore, though. In a world where Susan turns Harry and they just go to be crazy wizard vampire couple together.
It could be, as long as she turns him and doesn't just eat him. That's the thing.
No, yeah, but I'm saying, like, if they can just become, like, alternate timeline evil vampire couple. That would have been a fun series, too.
Or that's true. Alternate timeline good vampire couple.
No, they would have been evil. This is the good timeline now, supposedly.
They could be, the angel and...
name me a good vampire.
I just did.
I do like how Butcher really does paint a really great picture with sexual tension between the two of them. Like that interrupted moment where he's like, I need a beer.
Yeah.
Or really cold shower. Or... And then they go on, like, and then it's between both of them. I guess you didn't come over to tear your clothes off and use you shamelessly. Susan suggested. Her voice sounded calm again, but I can sense the underlining tone of her own hunger. Like it is a nice painted picture.
It's nice, because for a second you're almost like, geez, like Dresden, whoa, you know what I mean? But then again, like you say, Susan is just as into it just as quickly. It's like, as Jessica just said, they didn't break up because they fell out of love or anything like that, She just had to figure out what the hell was going on and what that meant. So yeah, it is nice that they are both this happy to see each other again, and they know it's complicated, and they know there's shit going on, and Susan's like, I'm not, sadly I didn't come back just to see you, much as I wish that was why I was here, Well,
Harry literally says, he's like, it was like waking up after days of anguish to find that the pain was gone, right? Like,
yeah,
it's a huge, huge relief for both of them to just like have a second together and be like, okay, we lived through a year.
Yeah.
What now?
Exactly, right? And almost that, pick up where we left off kind of a thing, except only we can't, because everything is still completely changed. So we ignored it for like half a second there, and now it's like reality is dumped back in our laps, right? But yeah, it's kind of, it's sweet and it's spicy and the whole, but yeah, basically comes down to exactly, she's like, yeah, we can't get into this right now. And he's like, fuck my life. Once again. Yeah, she's like, don't want to lose control, one way or the other. And that was the other thing I was going to mention, because you're like, if she just turned him and they went off to be like random. But I was like, I think that's the problem though, is I get the impression, and I can't remember if they specifically laid it out in Grave Peril, but it's like, I don't think she can turn him on the first. Like, if that's her first, it's always going to be a kill. And that's the hard thing, is that
Fair, yeah.
maybe if she turned and whatever, then she could come back and turn Harry into... And I can't remember this one. I feel almost...
And here I was just thinking it would be really interesting if she did turn him, and so he would be half, and then she would be full, and then it would be this like conflict between the two of them, because he'd still be like, "No, you can't do this," and she's like, "No, you can do this."
Yeah, right. That actually...
That's where I went with that.
That would be almost a more interesting... Yeah, exactly, right.
Angel and devil. Ah!
Yeah, because Harry would still have that half and
Well,
half.
luckily, if you're looking for a half-turned Harry, this is the book for you.
What?
I suppose events start next book for half-turned Harry, but...
Yeah. So we're like warping through the timeline again and these choices and like mirrors. Like, so if we all go back to this book, and she actually did, like, but yeah, I have a feeling that that's part of it, is that she couldn't just turn him and run off and live happily ever after.
Well, listen, though, because the facts of the matter are is that the next real book that's going to come out is going to be 12 months, and that's going to be a new sort of book that we've read before. Yeah. It's not going to be one weekend. It's going to be the entire scope of 12 months, what Harry did and all of that, because, you know, where we left off at the end of the last book, Battleground, was 3 or 4 different things saying, we'll deal with this in a year and a day. So we know that the book is going to be building up to that year and a day timeline, right? The book that comes after that is Mirror, where we deal with alternate timeline Harry, right? So for, you know, anything we throw out right now might come back to be a thing, right?
Wide open.
Let the predictions begin.
Exactly, right? And we know for a fact that one of the major events is going to be from that Grave Peril party. But, I mean, it's Butcher. He likes to, you know, muddy the waters with 1,000 things. So who knows who else from these earlier books that we've basically forgotten about, or not necessarily forgotten, but dismissed because things have changed so much from even that point, when it's like, well, forget who they are now.
Let's all go back, about Lydia.
Let's go back a decade ago, right, when none of this was possible, and restart.
Exactly.
So you never know.
I'm excited to go read those.
For those out there in the world who don't have social media, but you do listen to this podcast, Jim Butcher should be wrapping up his Cinder Spires book by this year or early January. So that means the next Dresden book is getting written soon, okay?
Yeah.
Or started on
Very
soon.
Exciting. Very exciting.
So
hurry up.
Who knows?
Excellent.
Maybe we'll only be waiting a year.
And we'll kind of have Cinder Spires to read in the meantime.
Sure.
Even though it won't take an entire year to read that one book. But I'll have to go back and reread the first one now, because that's
Still has to be published, though, so that'll take a couple months.
Yeah,
and you can read it. And by then, maybe he'll be announcing the new Dresden book.
Excellent. But also, the point I was going to make, aside from, I think the first kill is a kill, do they need more permission? I almost feel like Bianca there's mention there where she was given permission to turn more, or she had to grant permission to turn more. Am I mixing that with another... I can't remember if they get to just turn anybody willy-nilly, or whether that's sort of the hierarchy in the court, that it's like, you can go ahead and make more minions.
Because Paulo's whole thing is that he's upset that too many are getting turned right now, because there's no one to guide them and control them. He's like, normally there's a lot more order, but right now there's just so much chaos going on that they're just turning whoever the fuck they want and not taking orders from above them, because everyone above them is busy fighting a war.
Maybe.
So I think it's maybe like... respectfully, your, like, minions aren't allowed to just go hiring people, but at the moment, all of management is left, so all the underlings are like, sure, come join the party, we'll work, come work with us, it's fine, like...
Maybe. I was sort of taking that more to be not necessarily, that they were sort of breeding indiscriminately, but that, some of the ones that were already made, again, they don't all turn out the right way, or they don't all pick the perfect... it's like, oh yeah, you're allowed to go make, and they're like, that's what you made, you picked that, and so I just kind of always felt a little bit like some of it was more just, again, depending who was made or how they were made or what went on, that some were, again, more feral than others, and some were more your fae and fairies and all that too, right? Like, you've got your high sheed, and you've got your dumb trolls, and you've got your whatever pixies that don't have a lot of... But yeah, I could be. I would have to go back and double check that, because I don't remember offhand if they sort of need to. I just feel like that was a thing where Bianca, because she was elevated to her position,
something's tickling my brain with that
was
too,
allowed
that it
to
might be
make more, make whatever she wanted, or whatever. But anyways, regardless.
Yeah, so we get a couple of little callbacks to the last book. The postcard being on the mantle, and the brownie cleaning service making his place look so shiny and clean and fresh.
I know. She's like, is someone else living here now? He's like, no. Why? She's like, it's really clean. Like, really, really clean. Like, you smell like fabric softener. You've never used fabric softener in your life. And he's like, yeah, I got a cleaning service. And she's like, yeah, I heard you've been, like, too busy to clean up, which... That's, I guess, putting it nicely from the last book. It's like, yes, I was busy obsessing over you all this time, and, you know, my housework went completely down the drain. But, yeah, so I don't know how much if she knew from that, or again, she just literally heard, like, bits and pieces that he was. I don't know if she knows that it was all because he was obsessing over her and trying to fix her, but she's heard something. He's been trying to keep tabs on her, and she's apparently been keeping some tabs on him.
She does say she heard a rumor that he saved the world from doom, and Dresden, of course, downplays his involvement. Mostly I was just trying to save my own ass. The world was a toofer.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I'm getting cynical. I suspect the only thing I accomplished was to keep the fairies from screwing up the place so that we could screw it up ourselves. Right. He really does like that fuddy-duddy wizard persona. Like,
right.
Everything sucks forever.
Just accept the win. Yes, you did a good job, man.
Right. So I just sort of. So how do you sort of save the world? It's like, yeah. But yeah, and then she sort of goes through her changes and stuff, which is, you know, like she says, she's got the super strength, and her senses are like a little bit sharper, a little bit keener, and she's got the kiss. And he's like, my lips didn't like saying it, like they like the real thing better, which is very, you know, poetical in writing. I'm like, I don't know how many guys are actually thinking that way about. But yeah, ideally, he's like, I guess it sounds a lot better than, like, narcotic drool or whatever. Like, this is true. Like, that, again, like, that whole scene from Kelly where she was just, like, drooling spit on him was just like, ew! Like, you're right, it sounds much, much better this way. But yeah, she knows a little bit about what's going on, and he's like, how did you know about that? Like, the stuff with the wizards and, like, the attack on Archangel, and she's like, I'm an investigative reporter. I investigated. And he's like, huh. And she's like, I also know that this is how do you know that? And she's like, hello, are you listening? I investigated. Like, hi, Susan. How you been?
Do love Susan.
She's like, hello, Earth to Harry, wake the fuck up, okay?
Imagine had just Susan and Murphy just been friends on their own. like Murphy all the time is like, why don't you ever fucking tell me anything? If she'd just gone to Susan, she'd be like, no problem, I gotcha. Let's go figure this shit out.
Right.
All the sass from both sides.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, Harry'd be in
Yeah, poor
so
Harry,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, he'd just be like, oof.
There's Michael in the corner just laughing at him.
Right. And we get a brief mention of Matt, because I didn't really see him at all in the last book.
Mac?
I don't think he popped in at all for a steak
From
sandwich.
McAnally's pub?
Yeah, that Mac.
Holy shit!
I like that guy.
Like that guy a lot.
Wait, who?
Should go there more often.
All the time.
Now I want a steak sandwich.
Yeah. So, yeah, we get a mention. So, he's an unlettered heathen barbaric American wizard, because he's like, Mac prides himself on, like, his home old world brew or whatever, and he's like, he'd kill me for, like, keeping it in the fridge. So apparently, you know, Mac's beer is meant to be served warm, room temperature or whatever, as in the good old days before you had even ice boxes. I don't know. But yeah, he's like, I don't care, it's fine. He's like, I need a cooled beer.
I had one, when I bartended, I had one customer that would actually ask me to take a pint of beer and put it in the microwave for him.
Oh my, not just like take it out early and let it warm up, but just
throw it in the microwave to heat it up. It was like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not sure what that does to the carbonation in there.
But yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what that does to the whole thing, but at least it was just the one. Or non-surprisingly, it was only the one. Weirdly, I did not come across a bunch of people like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather just call ahead and be like, I'll be there in an hour. Can you pour a pint now and leave it on the
counter?
Like
just pull it out of the fridge, and when I get there, yeah. That's what I thought it was going to be more. You know, it's like, just start me off like a whiskey or something and let the beer warm up.
Yeah, fuck.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
Or perhaps I just wouldn't drink warm beer if the pub did not offer warm beer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Dresden lets Susan know her editor has been inquiring about her whereabouts, and she admits that she is going to quit and that she's found something else, but can't let Dresden know about it yet.
And I mean, again, this is kind of, I mean, part of me is like, I don't know, especially considering, you know, all like the minimum wage jobs, and you know, I listen to all like my kids and nieces and nephews and people like bitch about their job. And they're like, whatever, just walk away and don't go back. And you know, and Susan's like, or like, this would be like, you know, if you just gave them like a call or a text, would half the time be like more than these people get on her. Like, wow, you actually told me you're quitting? Okay, cool. And Susan's like, I couldn't just give her like a call or like write her a letter. Like, I had to come in person to quit. I was like, wow, you've got a really good relationship with your boss.
People clearly cared about the economy a little bit more in early 2000s than they do these days.
You know, or
you screw me, I'll screw you right back. Who cares anymore?
Yeah. And I mean, in all fairness, Susan does have a good job with a good editor. It's not just, you know, some punk minimum wage job where she's, you know, but at the same time, it's just like so funny where it's like, yeah, it was just like last week and was like, oh yeah, I just walked away and just never went back to that job. I blocked the number eventually. They stopped trying to get a hold of me. It's cool. So yeah, so she's like, but you know, I figured hey, since I'm here, I'm gonna stop in and say hi to you anyways and give you a big old warning. And he's like, yeah, I already know Ortega's in town. And she's like, there's more to it though, like it's not just that. And he's like, of course.
That he was responsible for the attack on Archangel. Wouldn't that have been great information to know during his trial? Like,
right?
Just
I forget the trial. Just like had Susan shown up in town 12 hours earlier,
well,
Harry's day would have been a lot better.
Yes, if she had just caught that earlier flight, it would have made a huge difference.
Or called.
But again, you know how unreliable phones are with Harry, and, you know, again, we don't know yet, but, you know, I mean, there are going to be some sort of reasons for why she didn't just... You know those darn pesky Reds and how much they like to, like, tap phones and things, you know? It's like, just because Harry can't use any technology doesn't mean anybody else isn't.
Yes, so basically they go through this whole, like, don't do the duel with Ortega, he's gonna cheat, and Harry's like, no fucking shit, but, like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
And I get where Susan is coming from. On the other hand, I'd be like, well, the dude started a war with the Reds because of me. Thanks a lot, Susan, you stupid fuck. And then she has to hear about Harry going and, like, being in the middle of a war with the fairies. And I think at a certain point, I'd just be like, you know what? He's good. Just let him, whatever. You got this, Harry.
Choices.
I don't have time to tell a guy not to go to war when he just ended a fairy war, like, a week ago. Although, in this case, it's been, like, 6 months. But
right.
I just, like... I get Susan wants him to stay protected. I get she's like, no, you don't get it. Paulo Ortega, he's like really like one of the top guys, super scary. You don't know what you're getting involved with. But I get maybe, you know, when you haven't met the queens, you don't know that they're 6. Like Harry didn't even realize there was 6. But at the same time, it's very much like too little, too late, Susan. We don't have time for backing out of a petty little duel. He's ecstatic. This is just a one-on-one duel, okay? Like,
well, and I mean, again, right? Like, you know, he's like, it's, I would back out, but the stakes are too high. Like, he's already told me he's gonna go after my friends that I like, plus even just, like, random clients that, you know what I mean? And Harry, being Harry, can't, you know...
I mean, essentially, like, everyone Harry meets in the next... When's the duel? 2 days from now?
Something like that. I don't think we've set a date yet, but...
No date.
No date yet? Okay,
yeah,
but it's like, whatever it is, it's like everyone he meets until the duel is like, they're just being added to a list right now.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty much, you know?
Like, if I was here, it's like, I need to go grocery shopping, but I'll get that cashier killed, so I guess I'll just starve. Like,
right, exactly.
I can't afford to go to Burger King right now.
Like, no Starbucks. Yeah, exactly. You're right, because it's like, all of a sudden, everybody becomes a potential victim, and just because they had the misfortune of interacting with you... But, you know, but she mentions, too, like not just that, but, you know, that his take on it and stuff like that, right? She's
I thought that was interesting, how he, like, would rather have peace, but the other vampire nobles are like, screw this, we just want to kill all the White Council, and then we're free reign.
Yeah, exactly, right? And she's like, it's not as popular. So she's like, in some ways, this very bad idea of his is actually a really good idea. Like, it is more beneficial for
the
you
death
and the White,
part.
except for the one small part where you're the guy that has to die to make it happen. But yeah, exactly, right? He's like, he would prefer, you know, for it to come out this way, because she's like, as long as they get rid of that, she's like, exactly. Then she's like, the White Council will totally sue for peace, and then they'll have to pay some, weird guild or something like that, but just that doesn't involve anybody else dying, and they'll pay like the money or the land or, whatever other crap and call it a day, right? So she's like, so she's like, either they're gonna cheat to kill you and then they get that way either way, or if you don't, then she's like, well, a bunch of the other vampires are not gonna want it to come out that way because
it is an interesting point to see how, like they say, like, the majority of the Reds want Harry to stay alive because that means war can continue, more destruction can happen, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, if he dies, war ends. I do think it's funny, though, to think of the Reds going around to all the other bad guys, stop killing him!
No, wait,
because, as we had in the last book, they were sending assassins to get Dresden, right? Like, they were hiring Ace to go and kill Dresden, right? It's very funny to think that they're also just running around to all the other they're like, stop, no, fairies, no, wait, everyone stop!
Assassins in the background fighting each other. No,
we're not assassinating.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I don't want to give out spoilers for the upcoming books, but obviously, the Red War lasts over the course of several books, right? And someone's trying to kill Harry in every single book, so it's very funny to just think in the background of exactly like all these assassins going, stop it! We want that guy alive!
Well, exactly right, and you almost have to think it's that, immediate kickoff of, like, shit goes down, they're like, all right, well, dude, that's it, now you're dead, and then somebody's going, like, actually, no, wait a minute, guys, and they're like, no, we're, like, trying to rein in that mob of people or whatever, where you're like, no, guys, we got it better, just stop and listen. Everyone's like, no, we're just gonna go do it.
And I like how every time they get all the bad guys to listen and be like, okay, we're not gonna kill him this week, the White Council's like, we're gonna kill him.
Yeah, right, exactly. Be like, well, fuck, if you guys aren't, now we got,
Yeah, right.
But yes, it is. It's gone exactly from like half of them very determinedly trying to kill him to the other half very determinedly not trying to kill him, and yet it really doesn't. You know what I mean? Like you say, you think there'd be a bigger force out there protecting Harry, and yet no. He just feels like he's got someone on his ass all the time trying to. It's like, if you want this war to continue, can I just have like a solid like bodyguard line of defense around me?
Almost think the Reds would be paying for his bodyguards at this point. Like, right? You want me alive or not?
We do, but not that much.
Like, it's almost suspicious.
Just rough him up so he's like fucked up, but don't actually kill him.
Yes, we can't actually interfere with anything. They keep hanging on.
It's almost suspicious because, like, Marcone had basically nothing to do with Grave Peril. He had definitely nothing to do with Summer Night, right? Like, he sat back for, like, 2 years after having a fairly large influence in book 1 and 2, right? Mm-hmm. So, it almost seems like the Reds did go to Marcone, like, you shut up, leave us alone. And Marcone was like, yeah, sure, whatever, no problem, right? But then they're like, all these other guys were like, fuck, it was so easy with the gangster. He left Harry alone, right?
Yeah. So many more.
Poor Harry. It's just not fair.
And with that 2 years, like, Marcone can totally level up. Like, Bianca's had, 1 year, and she, like...
She went hardcore. Okay, it's on now.
It's, like, funny. It's, like, sometimes when you're playing, like another, video game or something like that, and you need to be, like, let's say level 5 to defeat this one guy or whatever like that, but you go and do a bunch of side quests, and by the time you get back, you're, like, level 30. And it's like, most of the world, you get to level 1 in a year, you get to level 2 in a year, but in Chicago, you get to, like, level 30 every year.
Yeah.
Spend 1 year in Chicago, and you, like, power up to the max and everything immediately, right?
Yeah.
It's like a level 1 joining a team with, like, level 40 characters, so everyone else only goes up, like, 500 points, but you go up 50,000, and you become, like, level 20 in one round with those guys.
The difference between, like, joining the reserves and, like, going straight to, like, the Green Berets or whatever.
Exactly, right?
You're like, oh, you thought that was boot camp? No. Let me show you boot camp.
Well, it's funny, because, like, in the new Pokemon games, right? Before, it used to be the only time your Pokemon could level up is if they participated in the battle. Even if they were only brought out of their Pokeball, but then sent back in the Pokeball egg, they didn't do anything except for be on the field for that 1 second.
Yeah.
As long as they participated, they would get XP. In the new version of games, everyone in your party, on your belt, gets XP from every battle. So if you carry around, like, a level 100 Charizard everywhere you go, and then a bunch of baby Pokemon, you can get them all up to, like, level 30 in one game with 0 effort just by having your Charizard kill everything in one round, right?
Having your big guy, yeah.
So it's very much like that 1 year in Chicago, Bianca, Marcone, Dresden, whoever's here, the alphas even. It's like, you guys really want to practice your supernatural stuff. You just go hang out in Chicago for a week.
So is Harry like the 100 XP Charizard? Or is like everything else the 100 XP Charizard
I just
that
mean,
he's
like,
battling?
everyone in Chicago is like, forget this slow leveling up. You level up the more bad guys you walk into. Chicago's got way more bad guys than everyone else. Come spend a week of vacation here. Yeah. You'll go back to your small little town, kill them all.
So they're trying to write. So she's like, blah, 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 they're going to interfere, da-da-da, and you're about to continue this conversation when there's a knock at the door. Dun-dun-dun, instant high alert. Susan's still by the fireplace. She grabs the poker. Harry goes for his big-ass gun.
A dirty Harry.
A dirty
That's what
Harry.
he calls it, a dirty Harry. I'm like, you just bought that because of the name, you idiot.
No, that's particularly phallic.
Like, the man's had, like, a Winchester. He's had, like, I don't know, a bunch of numbers.
No,
And then this one he's like, get my dirty
Magnum. I think this is just his description so we can associate what kind of gun. It's not actually called a Dirty Harry.
But
It's just the same type of gun that Dirty Harry is.
yes, but
Okay.
the fact that it is the same name as his own name.
Oh.
Harry, you bitch.
Gotcha. I was like, okay.
It's his little Harry.
Well, I'm gonna say it's like kind of, it's like,
I don't know. From the sounds of it, it might be the bigger Harry.
So it's a cannon.
It's
it's like, you don't want to see me when I get mad.
a great big old dirty Harry Callahan number that weighed about 75,000 pounds. But yeah, isn't this one where he's like, it's like a 40? Susan, I am so glad to see you.
Lucky girl.
Harry, is that a gun in your pocket?
No, super strength, you say? Now we can really get down to business. But yeah, I'm pretty sure at some point he said it's like a 45 or whatever, and he had like a 38 before. So yes, it's a big.
He's leveling up.
Surprising Susan never got pregnant.
Maybe it's like all the other, technology and stuff that he screws up. Although actually, no, that would be worse. Because I was gonna say, I guess that would maybe screw up all the contraceptives. So maybe that would.
Right, so a male voice familiar to Susan asks for her, and Harry opens the door to Martin, a 75-year-old bland man, as he puts it.
A 75-year-old?
No.
Didn't say that in there?
No.
Oh, okay, fuck it. They said bland man. I probably fucked it up somewhere.
Sorry, that's okay. Sorry, it's a bland man, maybe 5'9", about 175.
Oh, I missed. Okay, I totally.
Wait, not
fucked
8.
that up. I'm awesome.
The oldest man in the world is not.
The oldest.
I was like, why is he jealous? This guy's old.
This man.
I just think
This is who you're with. Sorry, Drew. I was like, where did she get by that?
Okay, I did that.
He did that. It's okay.
he's more like 30s, 40s.
Okay, so this makes more sense, but the jealousy part, I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay.
You're jealous.
You're really insecure, Harry.
She dumps me for some geriatric.
I'm quitting my job, Harry, because I've got money anyway.
Found me a sugar daddy.
Crap.
He's got no personality, but man, have you seen his handgun?
Could you see, Harry, what it means to have money?
So yes, Martin's very
bland. He's not really worth the laugh that we just gave him.
no, that
Quite
just made
frankly.
he's not. But what did you call him? The pedantic Avenger. Whatever. It's yes, he is just
Very unassuming, very nothing.
very nothing. Very mediocre Martin.
Yes.
Susan's already kind of annoyed with him, just on sight.
Yeah.
She's interrupting.
She's like, what
How
are you
dare
doing here? She's like, I told you I was coming to talk to him. He's like, you could have phoned. She's like, So again, even that right there, right? Susan's like, I don't think a phone call is sufficient for my editor at work. But, you're like, it's just your ex-boyfriend who proposed to you and who you guys went through a bunch of really intense trauma bonding things and, was trying to rescue you and ultimately caused you to become what you are. It's like, you could have just phoned him. Just because we're here in town and you haven't seen him in a year, right? And Harry's like, fuck you. And even Susan is a little bit like, okay, come on. That's not what I meant. I told you I was going to talk to him.
Could you imagine
I'm not just going to go to the phone.
how much even more fucked up it would have been if he's like, okay, Mortimer, where the fuck is Susan? And he's like, Peru. And he's like, okay. And then the next day he gets a phone call from a Chicago number, and she's like, hey, Harry. I'm like, motherfucker.
Bye. Yeah, right. Fuck, Morty should have been ducking and covering that.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Oh, fuck, of course this fucking
One
happened.
thing if it was a Peru number, but if a Chicago number showed up, I'd have been like, Mortimer, what the fuck, man?
Again, one of the small advantages they have is that there's no way Harry's got a call display phone.
Could you imagine?
I don't know.
It would just like be sparking.
Can you do like star 69 from like a rotary phone? I don't know.
I think you can just call the lady at the place and be like,
The
who called
operator.
me? Where did that call come from? Tell me right now.
It came from inside your house. So, yeah, so Harry's like, hello, like, my house. Hi, I'm Harry. How are you? And Martin just kind of looks at him. He's like, I don't know. First of all, he won't even introduce himself. He looks back at Susan. So Susan's like, Harry, Martin, Harry. And then Harry's like, hi. And he's like, I don't shake hands. And he's like, what the fuck is this person? Like...
Someone who's a bigger dick than Harry.
Yeah, right? He's like, I can't even intimidate him. He's like, okay, so you're like a foot taller than him. That's a good start. But Martin's just like, whatever. And it's like, you can't even, like, do a big, firm, manly handshake, whether you were going to, like, squish his hand or not. But it's like, you can't even do any of that because he's just like, I don't shake hands. You're like, what the motherfucker?
I think it's even worse, too, because Harry, like, just got his hand crushed by Paulo. He's like, that was an option? I could have just said that to Paulo. I got my hand crushed by a vampire, like, 2 hours ago, and I could have just said, I don't shake hands.
Shit. Right, and again, hello, 20 years ago, because now nobody shakes hands.
It's illegal now.
Just do really hard elbow taps. Bam!
Right. It's just gonna, like, bump fists. It's not my fault I accidentally got his nose.
Yeah, their interaction is very it's very brief.
Super stilted, super brief, super awkward.
Yeah, Martin gives him nothing, no how.
Susan and Martin basically just leave in the cab right away.
Martin gives him something. We have to be up early.
Well, that's true. We? Yeah. So she's like, oh, sorry, I gotta go. And he's like, wait. She's like, oh, I really wish I could, but I really gotta go. And he's like, we again. He's like, Susan, what? And she's like, I'm sorry. And then she's like, I think she says, I'll try to talk to you again before we leave. So she's not even guaranteed, like, so we don't, sounds, like maybe they're not going to be there very long. We still don't know what else, besides her editor, what else is she here for and warning you about Ortega. But sounds like you're going to be taking off right away. Maybe you'll have time to stop in and explain more and go over more and, but like, let me just come in and give you, like, maybe not entirely cryptic warnings because it's fairly upfront about, but you know what I mean? Just maybe not quite a full explanation, and then just, if I have time, I'll get back to this whole how you're gonna die thing. But if not, it's great seeing you.
Just another Tuesday.
Just another Tuesday, and this guy who he has no idea who he is, how he is, what he is, and it's just like...
Butcher does write this last little bit of the thing extremely comical, right? Like, you've got Harry freaking out, and it's just we, and then he's freaking out, and it's like we, and it's freaking out, it's like we, and it's like, ah! Poor Harry.
Yes. So he does the next best thing that he always
Someone
does.
who is not me.
Yes. Probably she's with somebody else. So yeah, goes for the whole, fall back on the old standby, and he goes for a cold shower. And this was like, okay, so he's, brooding over everything, and da-da-da-da-da, and, the cold shower isn't taking the edge off immediately, but he's like, I turn the shower to its coldest setting. I'm like, isn't that just you turning it on? You've said time and time again that you don't have any kind of, like, heat or power, no hot water tank. So if there's no hot, isn't your cold water just always as cold as it's going to be?
Maybe he just needs to convince himself it's a choice.
Maybe. So I'm just gonna keep cranking that cold water tap.
He specifically said, I stomped into the bathroom and turned on my shower. The water was only a couple degrees short of becoming sleet. So then he just made it the sleet thing.
I guess. Because again, I can't remember if they said it specifically or not, but we will find out very shortly. He does mention that it's February. So we know that it's, and again, this is Chicago. Chicago is not like California. February in Chicago is not going to be warm. It's not like, you know, the water was just like room temperature or something. And sure, if you keep running it, it's going to get colder or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is February with supposedly like relatively unheated pipes. Although I don't know, I guess he has to keep them from freezing. Maybe again it's that whole
underground is
maybe
insulated.
it's that whole insulated from the rest of the house. You know, it's like thankfully the Wilsons or whatever upstairs have like, you know, hot water. So by default he's like taps are lukewarm. But yeah, it's just funny. I just get that. I'm like, you have no hot water. What on earth are you sending it to like the coldest thing for? I'm like, anyways.
Yeah. So he eventually does leave the shower and heads to bed, but he gets a call from none other than Karen Murphy.
Right. And again, in typical Harry fashion.
Against
what? Oh, wait, it might be Susan. I mean, hello. It's still just Murphy. I was like, I don't really care if I piss off anybody else that might be like a friend or a colleague or a client. But he's like, it's Susan, so potentially.
Fucking Susan. Oh, wait, Murph. Fucking Murph.
So yes, turns out she would like him to come consult on something off the books.
Pro bono.
Yes.
And by off the books, I assume you mean I'm not getting paid. Well,
Do you remember that whole shift when we stopped being like colleagues and we started being friends? That means you do a lot more free work now, but we don't fight as much, so...
Yeah. Pretty much. It's like, that's the only problem with you, like, training me and all this stuff and, like, making sure we're, like, informed is, like, now we don't have an excuse to actually hire you. Now they just expect us to take care of it because...
Like, Larry Fowler paid him ahead of time, right? So he's good on that front. Who cares that the episode's never going to air?
Right.
You would think, yeah.
It's not Harry's fault that the studio shut down.
No. Not
that
yet,
they can prove.
Yeah. But,
Things just started blowing up.
this could happen to anyone. And obviously he's not a real wizard, so obviously it can't be his fault.
I actually really like that the priest and Mortimer and Paulo and Harry all showed up knowing that the studio was going to fail. The priest didn't know it was going to fail.
Yeah.
But I like how Paulo and Mortimer also took their paycheck knowing that they wouldn't have to do any work. They're like, well, Harry's going to shut this place down, but yeah, you can pay me to come be on your show.
Well, I mean, it was... Okay, Paolo maybe, because he was gonna obviously antagonize. I was like, the rest of it, not necessarily.
But even Mortimer
he
knows, like, the
could've.
amount of power Harry has in the struggle, right? Like,
It's like the likelihood was there.
They pretty much knew. They basically, all three of them are in trouble for swindling Larry.
I don't know, someone book us on a talk show. Do you get paid in advance? I don't know how that works. You get paid once it airs? Like, I don't know.
Like,
Like, how
50-50
fast
thing.
is it counting?
Generally, they like pay your flight or your gas bill to get there, right? Because they want you so bad on the show to make content, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
And then they pay your hotel, put you up for it, right?
Yeah, but see, Harry's local, so there was none of that, so...
I think that
Yeah, but
depends
I
on
was
the show.
Yeah.
Well, Larry Fowler's not real, so
How,
I can't.
I was just gonna say, how on the up and up is Larry Fowler? How does this shit...
There'll be a check in the mailbox in a couple of days, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So yeah, so she's got a body at the morgue that she would like an opinion on. She wants to show him a corpse.
I want to show you a corpse.
Can we just have a short story where it's just Harry filing complaints with the Better Business Bureau? Because like 45 of them are just fronts to kill him. And also, while we're at it, Larry Fowler didn't pay me.
I was promised a free checkup and cleaning, and it was just some dude with
The pizza delivery place
That-
just serves bombs.
that was not laughing gas, okay?
Now me and 300 fairies are dead.
Oh, not tooting his buddies.
That'd be so funny. Imagine being a vampire, you keep getting called to go drop off a pizza in the middle of a forest, and you keep showing up with your assassin tools, and there's no Harry there, and you're like, every week this guy orders a pizza to this field, and every week he's not fucking here.
Or those guys just keep disappearing and they don't know because the fairies are all like, screw this, we're getting our pizza. And they just, 10,000 fairies swarm this guy and leave his body in a field and they fly off with their pizza.
Harry doesn't even know about half those assassination
They're like,
attempts.
She's like, this is great. We get free pizza and something to feed our pet trolls.
The guy that's going there is like, why are
Harry
all
is
these
like
bones
going
everywhere?
above. No, I imagine they just all like sink down to the earth with like fairy magic and stuff. Like there's nothing left.
I was gonna say, like, imagine walking through a forest and you get to like this fairy circle and there's just like
Pizza boxes and bones.
No. Like Pizza 73 uniforms strewn everywhere. There's like 47 Pizza Hut hats everywhere you look.
Domino's, 30 minutes or less. It's like- we have gone through more.
Little
Shroud
Caesars,
of
hot
Turin.
and ready.
Hot and cold, running blood on tap. Oh my god, that's funny. Hot and ready. Oh.
So anyways, Harry heads to the morgue.
This concludes our episode 10.3. We thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Happy holidays, everyone!
Happy holidays!